Where is he? She murmured to herself as she rushed through the corridor, desperately looking for her boyfriend John Jungkook. He will be so happy. A smile broke out on her lips as she gazed at the box of homemade cookies which she specially baked for him. Her eyes sparkled with adoration when she saw him standing at the corner, surrounded by his friends. A pink tint covered her cheeks without her knowing. It almost felt like a blessing to be the girlfriend of the popular boy, when other students despised her for being a nerd. Being the girlfriend of a person who never failed to remind you how much she matters to him every now and then. She slowly and steadily stepped towards the person who owned her heart and mind. Everything around her slowly faded as Jungkook was the epicenter of her vision. Bro, how are you holding up with that nerd? The small smile which tugged at her lips slowly dropped as she saw her boyfriend rolling his eyes at her mention. She is damn annoying and clingy. I don't know how will I spend a week more with her. I'm already at the edge of losing my patience. Just a week. Remember, you will lose the bet if you didn't complete the 3 months timeline. I know. Apart from being irritating, she comes out beneficial for me. I mean, I'm going to get a million for winning this bet. He smirked and his other friends chuckled. She was easy to fool. She melted with few sweet words. I didn't have to try harder. I can't wait to see her reaction when I'll tell her she was just a pet. He laughed along with his minions, convinced of someone hearing his venomous words, which shattered her heart into pieces. Her grip on the cookies box loosened, and it fell on the floor with a third sound, gaining the attention of the wicked trio. She watched as their face turned pale and they gaped at her with wide eyes. She stared at Jungkook through her glossy eyes. Why? She whispered, gulping down the acute tightness in her chest, with which each passing second was getting more intense. She saw him gaining his composure. He stuffed his hands inside his pants pocket and walked towards her, stopping in front of her, a proud smirk tugged at his lips. So, you heard everything. He raised his eyebrows. Wine tried to search for an ounce of guilt in his eyes, but guess what? She found nothing. Can you wait for a week? Once I'll get the money, I'll give you some too. It will be beneficial for both of us. He spoke casually as if he was planning a vacation with her. She stared at him without uttering a word. She was searching for her sweet boyfriend who claimed to love her, but he wasn't the Jungkook she knew. He was a total stranger. What happened, Nerd? Did you lose your voice due to shock? His friends laughed loudly until now. Students had crowded around them, watching the drama curiously. Some were laughing, some were looking at her with pity, while some just didn't care. Did you love me? Her voice came out shaky due to how hard she was trying to control her tears. He blinked his eyes before bursting into fits of laughter as if she had cracked some kind of joke. She is asking if I loved her. Didn't you hear earlier? You were just a bet, a way to make some money. He shrugged his shoulder, not realizing what kind of a big sin he committed by breaking someone's heart and trust because of his big male ego. A traitorous lone tear dropped from her eyes. She was quick to wipe it. She didn't want to portray herself as a weak by bawling her eyes out, at least not in front of him. She blinked back her tears and looked at him with a bitter, almost pained smile. Thank you. Thank you for making me realize that nobody could be trusted in this world. Of course, money holds more power than pathetic love. I don't blame you for that. She chuckled bitterly, and she saw a flicker of remorse in his eyes, which was gone as soon as it came. But did she care about it? No. You will be a great businessman someday. She gave him a tight-lipped smile, which never reached her eyes. Jungkook was stunned because he was expecting her to scream or cry, but she was smiling. She looked around, meeting everyone's eyes, stopping her gait at Jungkook. I had endured each and every mean or rude comments they threw at me. I hold the potential to endure your betrayal also, but he clenched his jaw and looked away, not being able to hold the intense eyes contact with her, where he saw his reflection of his deeds, reflection of pain that he caused to someone. Karma is I wish you all get your karma, but I'll also pray that you will get the strength to endure what is coming in your way. She sighed and clenched her trembling hands. Today I learned a big lesson of life. I'll never forget it. I hope you got what you deserve, but don't worry from my side. I forgive you guys because I don't want to hold any kind of feeling against you. You aren't even worthy of my hate. Her voice was calm and calculated, unlike the turmoil of emotions inside her. She was proudly looking at them, indirectly striking their nerves of regret. She bent down and picked the box that slipped off her hands earlier. I made these for my boyfriend. She gazed at the box in her hands and turned her back, walking away from him. Jungkook observed her stumbling on her steps before steadying herself. She threw the cookies in the trash bin and left from there without turning back. With each step she took, she closed her heart for everyone, burying her pain deep inside. Her eyes, which used to drip with what she felt, turned cold and dull. The emotions in them disappeared. With each stumbling step, she threw away the insults and betrayal and slowly stood her ground firmly with self respect. She balled her fists, controlling the wetness which pooled in her eyes. She was determined to not shed tears for that inhuman person who didn't think twice before breaking her heart, using her for his own benefits. Jungkook came back home and slumped down on the couch. He closed his eyes and Wyan's blank face appeared in front of his eyes. He sat upright with a jerk. The memories of today's incident were still fresh in his mind. His friends gave him the money and he spent it all hanging out with them, but he didn't feel the satisfaction that he wanted. He shook his head to shoo away his thoughts but failed badly. His mind was preoccupied with Ryan's thoughts, and now that he was alone, these thoughts were haunting him. For a millisecond, he regretted what he did with her, but his ego struck his nerves the next moment and he shrugged off that feeling. He sighed and pushed himself off the couch. With heavy steps, he dragged his worn out body upstairs. With great difficulty, he made it up the stairs and skidded towards his room. As he was passing from his sister's room, he heard faint sobs from inside. He halted midway and knocked on her door. Hearing no response from her other side, he pushed the door open and barged inside. He looked around the dimly lighted room. He found her curled up in one dark corner of the room. Her body shivered as loud, painful sobs erupted from her mouth. He wasted no time in running towards her. He crossed down to her level and gently held her shoulder. She flinched and lifted her face. His heart clenched seeing his sister's tear-stained face. "What happened, Sia?" he asked softly to his sister, who was 1 year younger than him. His voice provided her the needed comfort, and she threw herself in his arms, sobbing on his chest. He held her protectively, confused and scared by her breakdown. She was hiccuping and trembling badly. "Shush, don't cry, tell me what happened." Though he was bad at comforting people, still he tried his best to comfort his little sister. She backed off from the hug and extended her hand towards him. She unclenched her fist, revealing a white stick. It didn't take long for him to understand what it was. Are, are you pregnant?" he whispered, shook up from the new information he got. She slowly nodded and broke down in loud sobs once again. He shuddered, loosening his grip on her. "Who?" he managed to voice out despite the chaos inside. "Max." He said I was a bad and I should get rid of this baby." She stammered between her loud cries. His jaw clenched as rage fell inside him. He fisted his hands, controlling the urge to roar like a beast. "Come here." He picked her in his arms and put her on bed. "Sleep, baby sister. Your brother is with you. I'll make him pay for what he did," he whispered, stroking her head gently. In no time, she fell asleep due to tiredness. He fixed her duvet and rose from the bed. "Max, you are going to regret it." He glanced at his sleeping sister and strode towards the door, leaving to Max's apartment. Punching the passcode, Jungkook barged inside Max's apartment. The strong smell of alcohol hit his nostrils. He noticed Max sprawled over the couch, completely wasted, surrounded by empty alcohol bottles. Jungkook scrunched his nose in disgust. "Oh, my bro Jungkook, come and have a drink with me," he blurted in his drunk tone on seeing him. He clenched his jaw and took big steps towards him, landing a hard punch on his face. Max's eyes widened as another hard punch followed after. "What the?" Jungkook made him stand up by holding his collar and punched him in the stomach, earning a loud yelp of pain from him. "How dare you touch my sister?" He roared and punched him continuously, beating him black and blue. He was blinded by anger. His sister's tears shook him till the core. He so wanted to unalive him for hurting his baby sister. "What do you think you are doing?" He pushed him back with every ounce of his strength. He stumbled and fell on the couch with his bruised body. Jungkook panted heavily as he tried to get a hold on his bubbling up rage. "You, how dare you touch my sister? She is pregnant." He held his collar, landing another hard punch on his face. Max coughed out blood by the intensity of that punch. She told you, don't worry, tell her to abort it, as simple as that." His words ticked him off. "You used my sister for a bet, and I'll make sure you pay for everything." Max chuckled humorously, triggering him. "Look who's talking. Didn't you do the same with wine? She was also a bet for you. Come on, bro. It's not a big deal. It's our age to have fun, and I see nothing wrong in this." Jungkook's grip loosened on his collar and he stepped back. His shoulders slumped down as the bitter reality hit him. His palms turned sweaty. He collided with the tea table and fell down on the floor. Guilt filled inside him. Thick tears of remorse rolled down his eyes. He held his hair in frustration and anger on himself. "What have I done?" he murmured to himself. His heart pounded inside his rib cage. His breathing fastened as he grappled with the newfound feeling inside him. He took the support of the table and tried to get up, but his own body felt heavy to him, heavy with the burden of regret and shame. It took every cell of his body to get up from there. He heard the muffled voice of Max, but he was too lost to understand what he was saying, lost in the deep ocean of guilt. His sister's tears affected him to this extent that he was ready to commit homicide, forgetting that he had done the same with the girl who was also someone's daughter and sister. He stumbled towards the door, his mind filled with the venomous words he spat on wine, leaned against a wall and bawled his eyes out, punching the wall continuously until his knuckles started bleeding. "I'm so sorry, Wine," he murmured, but would his regret and apology lessen the pain Wine went through, or would it lessen the sins he committed under the influence of his evil friends? Jungkook stood near the entrance waiting for Wine. His eyes were red and swollen due to how much he cried last night. He ignored the looks of passers-by. About his sister, he informed his parents as he wasn't in the right state of mind and they were taking care of that matter. "Where is she?" He was getting desperate with each passing second. Few minutes later, the bell rang. The students rushed toward their classes, but he kept standing there, staring at the entrance. But she didn't come. Days passed, but Wyan never showed up in the school after that incident. It became a routine for Jungkook to wait for her near the entrance, desperate to seek for her forgiveness. He even visited her rented apartment, where he got to know that she left, leaving him with the heavy burden of regret and shame. He tried to search for her, but at the end his hands were empty. Nobody knew where she went. She didn't punish him but left him to survive with the weight of his deeds for forever, where it was hard to even breathe, where his reflection reminded him of the pain he caused to someone, where he couldn't forgive himself. All he sought for a chance to meet her in person and beg for her forgiveness. A woman in her early 20s stood at the entrance of her dream university. She gazed at the big building in front of her with dull and cold eyes. Her face was stoic hard, devoid of any emotion. She let out a sigh and stepped inside. "Hey you, stop!" Someone called out for her, which she ignored and kept walking. Hey, you newbie! She heard the same voice, which she paid no heed to. She took slow and calculated steps until she felt a tug on her hoodie from behind. She stopped and turned back. She saw a boy, probably of her age. His perfectly gelled hair and expensive clothes gave off rich vibe, but the ugly mark on his lips was an indication of rich, spoiled brat. She pushed his hands off her hoodie and turned around to leave, but he held her arm tightly and turned her to face him. It's wrong to ignore your seniors, newbie. What do you want? She spoke with cold, monotonous voice, wrenching her arm free from his grip. Uh-huh. Now that you are going to be a part of our university, how about you start it by obeying your seniors? He raised his eyebrows, smirking at her, which did give her a good vibe. I ain't going to obey anyone, and I definitely don't want to waste my time here. She turned around to leave, but he came in front of her, blocking her way. She looked at him annoyed. Seems like you are in a hurry. Kiss me, and I'll let you go. She clenched her jaw, glaring at him with her blazing eyes. Move aside, she spoke calmly. Her tone had a hidden warning. How about a no? Kiss me, and I'll move aside. He smirked, which irked rage inside her. Move aside, or the consequences won't be good for you. She gritted out, controlling the urge to wipe off that shit eating grin on his face. No. He stubbornly shook his head, unaware of what he was calling for himself. Fine for me, he murmured and landed a hard punch on his face, which made him stumble back. He whimpered, holding his now bruised jaw. He glared at her with anger filled eyes and raised his hand to slap her. She was quick to hold his hand and twisted it behind his back, earning a painful yell from him. She pushed him on the ground and got on top of him, beating him mercilessly. What do you think of yourself? You don't own me. Other students gathered around the scene, shocked to see a fragile looking girl beating a Hulk like boy. Stay away from me, she yelled, getting up the yelping boy. She rolled her eyes around a crowd of students. She hated being the center of attention. Her eyes met with a familiar pair of eyes which once held the facade of love for her, which she never wanted to see ever again. He was none other than Jungkook, standing amidst the crowd, staring at her with glossy eyes. A small smile graced his face. His sight worked as spice on her wounds. It scratched her old wounds, which she had hidden deep inside her. It reminded her of her foolishness, of her sufferings. Meanwhile, Jungkook heart bloomed with happiness, finally seeing her after years. He found her, but did he really find her? Or he lost the person she was before because her face, which used to glow with innocence, was stoic hard. Her eyes, which used to shine with happiness, were dull and devoid of any emotion. Her rosy lips, which used to curve into the most beautiful smile, were dry and distant. Her sweetness and bubbly nature was gone. Her demeanor screamed anything but sweet and loving. She had changed completely. She was no longer the wine he once knew. She was fearless and ruthless. His train of thoughts came to halt when he saw her picking her bag and walking away from there. He wasted no time in following her. Vine, listen to me, please. He pleaded, running behind her, but she turned a deaf ear to his calls. Please listen to me for once. He took fast steps towards her and managed to get his hold on her wrist. Listen to me for once, he requested with broken voice. She turned around, pinning him under her intimidating gaze. Don't touch me. She freed her wrist from his grip and looked at him with cold eyes. I don't know you and I don't want to know you, so you better keep your distance from me. I don't want to get into another fight early morning. Her words held an indirect warning. I am sorry, Ryan, for whatever I did. I regretted everything. I'm genuinely sorry. He whispered as thick tears rolled down his eyes. No one stays happy after causing someone immense and unforgettable pain. I'm really sorry. He kneeled down in front of her. She looked at him for a few moments before walking away from there. His tears, his pleadings, nothing affected her. She had turned her back from emotions years back. She doesn't feel anything, nor she wants to feel anything and make fool out of herself. Jungkook watched her retreating back with remorseful eyes. He committed something unforgivable. He indirectly killed a person. He killed Ryan. Ryan came back to her apartment. She threw her tired body on the couch and blankly stared at the ceiling. Seeing Jungkook after years manifested the painful memories of her past. Though her past wounds were still fresh, his presence worked like an acid. She flushed when the sound of doorbell echoed through the silent living room. She pushed herself up the couch and went to open the door. She was shocked to see Jungkook at her doorstep. She hastily gained her composure. "What are you doing here?" she probed. Her voice was bland and uninterested. "Can we talk, please, Ryan?" "No," came her instant reply. She closed the door, but he kept his foot, blocking her to shut it completely. She found her jaw, using her strength, but of course he was way more stronger than her. "Please, Ryan," he pleaded. She sighed and stepped aside, letting him in. "How did you find my address?" I followed you," he replied and looked down. "Make it quick and leave." She crossed her arms on her chest as a look of indifference took over her features. "I am really sorry, Ryan, for whatever I did. I learned my lesson. I really regretted everything." Looked at her when he didn't get any reply. "I forgave you long ago. I don't hold any kind of feeling against you. Now leave." She spoke with unwavering coldness in her demeanor. "No, you didn't. You didn't forgive me. After the pain I caused you, it's really hard for you to forgive me. Even if you did, I'm not able to forgive myself. It's difficult to survive with guilt. I can't look at myself in eyes. I feel ashamed. I got my karma. The same thing happened to my sister. That friend of mine used my sister for a bet. She got pregnant. She cut him off. I feel bad for your sister that she had to go through this, and above all, for having a brother like you." She sighed and blinked back the wetness that poured in her eyes. No matter how much she tried to cocoon herself under the facade of coldness, those perfidious tears always find a way to her eyes. "When I can survive through your betrayal, you can also live with the outcomes of it. For me, you are nothing but a stranger, and it should be the same for you. It will be better if you keep your distance from me. Don't try to interact with me at any spot on earth. This is the last time I'm speaking to you. I have moved on with my life, and I don't want to go back in my past." He stared at her through his glossy eyes. "Leave." She pointed at the door. "Ryan, leave right now, or else I have to call the cops." He nibbled on his lower lip and walked towards the door. He halted on his steps and glanced at her before leaving from there. When she heard the door closing sound, she fell on her knees. She panted as it was getting difficult for her to breathe. She rubbed her chest. "Breathe, Ryan." She did the breathing exercise her therapist suggested her. It took her 15 minutes to be able to breathe normally. She slowly lay down on the cold floor and hugged her knees closer to her chest, staring aimlessly at the wall ahead of her. Her body felt numb and cold, sought for warmth. Her heart craved to pick its pace. Her soul desired to be free from the cruel world. She fought a battle with herself. The depressing, suicidal thoughts revolted in her mind all over again. The full sleeve sweater hid the deep scars of self harm. She didn't hold the sharp blade for months, but today her mind provoked her to do it again, to find peace in pain. Vine found herself standing in the park where she had been visiting since 6 months. She, as usual, sat under a tree beside a long haired man who was holding a guitar. No words exchanged between them. The man started playing a sweet melody on his guitar. Vine closed her eyes, feeling at peace, getting the needed comfort. She slowly opened her eyes as he stopped playing the guitar. How was the first day of university? Disturbing. He's also there. I wanted to harm myself again. Did you do it? No. Why? He tilted his head in a direction. Because you said you will stop showing up if I harm myself. She spoke, meeting her therapist's dark brown eyes. Minyungi, a psychotherapist, after that incident, Vine went into depression and cut herself from the world. She went back to her hometown. Her parents were worried seeing their daughter slowly turning into living corpse. They sought medical help, but nothing changed her condition until 6 months ago. Vine's maternal aunt suggested a therapist for Vine. Her parents instantly sent her to her aunt's house. Then she met Menyongi, a weird yet magical person. He asked her aunt to meet her in the park, where he showed up holding a guitar, wearing stylish clothes, looking no less than a rock star. He sat under a tree with an emotionless vine beside him. He played a melody for her, and like he casted a spell on her, she spoke her heart out in front of him. She spoke for hours, and he listened calmly without interrupting. I will stop showing up if you hurt yourself again. These were his only words after their first session. From that day, she kept coming back on regular basis. 6 months, just in 6 months, he did wonders on her, giving her life back to her. How did you feel after getting back to normal life once again? Weird. I beat an Then I got weird looks because I was older than the other freshers. And then I met him. For a second, I thought I was back at square one. Him standing in front of me, I being the center of attention. It all felt like deja vu. And she went on ranting about her day. How easy it was for her to speak in front of him without feeling any emotion. Unknowingly, he had become her happy place. Do you feel anything for him? She shook her head. No, he doesn't matter to me. He's better as a stranger. So, you are finally moving on. He smiled slightly, her lips curved into a very small smile. I should leave. She rose from her place. Fine, he called out, halting her midway. She turned around as he stood in front of her. He extended his hand towards her. Friends. She stared at his hand, then at him. Uncertainty lingered in air as she grappled within herself to accept his handshake or to walk away from there. As he read through her eyes, understanding the reason behind her hesitation, he spoke. It's not wrong to give yourself a second chance. His words shooed away her conflicts. She smiled, shaking hands with him. Friends. His smile widened as he tightened his grip on her hand. They started a journey of blooming love between Vine and Jungi. She, who lost her hopes in love and life, learned the true meaning of love. He became her friend, then best friend, then lover, and finally a soulmate. He provided her the love and care her heart craved for, the peace her mind sought for, a shoulder to cry on, and above all, she found her home.